Apparently there has been a rather huge leak of a rather large amount of details for Fallout 4 posted on the Elo Trollado forums, who basically got a post from one user who had managed to get his hands on the game early and share his experience. And now he has shared information on difficulty, weapons, armor, settlements, gameplay information. There is a lot of information here that he has posted. Now, just to get this out of the way, of course, none of this is confirmed, and as I said, it was posted on forums from a user, and they were posted in Spanish and then translated to English. I will put the source below if it hasn't been deleted, of course. So you can read it, but just take all this with a pinch of salt, and of course, if you're worried about spoilers, consider this your massive spoiler warning in big bright letters that are lit up in neon, okay? So, what have we got here? Now, he began with a little bit of talk about the graphics, basically saying how they're not what he would call revolutionary, but better than what we've seen so far in E3 and via screenshots, and the game looks much better than some of its parts, and the lighting is some of the best you've ever seen. There are a few frame rate dips here and there, but there's also a lot more on screen than was in Fallout 3. Next up was difficulty levels. There are 6 of them apparently, very easy, normal, hard, very hard, and survival. So with each of the difficulty levels, the character's damage, enemy resistance, enemy spawn rate, and the legendary enemy spawn rate are different. And as you'd expect, legendary enemies will drop legendary loot once you've defeated them. As you'd expect, legendary items have unique characteristics. For example, could have better crit chance or regeneration of action points upon landing critical hit, stuff like that. Now, you can actually configure the colour of your heads-up display via red, green and blue sliders, and the lockpicking and hacking are identical to that in Fallout 3. And apparently the map size is pretty close to what we saw in Skyrim. And then it went on to discuss the combat. And from what he's describing here, the combat sounds like it's been vastly improved, being described as visceral. You can feel the impact and recoil of weapons, which is a pretty nice jump from Fallout 3, which had a somewhat clunky combat system. The AI has also been improved. Enemies will hide away from your sight, seek cover, and of course attack you when your health is low, or say when you're reloading. And just one thing to remember, this player is playing in hard mode, so of course that will crank things up a little bit, but it still sounds like the AI is a bit smarter, a bit more organic. And he also said that people can choose to completely play without VATS, VATS, just to clarify, as it's not essential in any way. Described the animations as perfect, and there's a great variety in how people look. Now here comes a slight criticism of the game in form of the dialogue system. And in through 23 hours of play, he faced very few missions in which he wasn't able to get out of the situation through dialogue. There's a similar friendship system to what you see in Dragon Age and Mass Effect. However, there's no visible karma system, and there's no in-game statistics for your reputation. And so they're speculating that reputation will work in a similar way to Skyrim. Now, one of the things he talked about the most was settlements, basically describing it as something you'll either love or hate. And basically described how it worked, saying you will find red workshop tables spread out in settlements all over the world. A few of these were in empty settlements that you can build from scratch, while others will be occupied. If you encounter an occupied settlement, you have to first identify what type of people have been settled in it. If they're friendly NPCs, you can complete missions to help them gain their trust. And of course, we did see a little bit of this in E3. You can destroy and rebuild everything you see in those settlements. Now, to sustain the population of a given settlement, you have to provide them with food, water, energy and beds, and of course they can come under attack, and you will receive a message notifying you with the option to go and help defend, kind of like we saw in Far Cry, I suppose. Now, he claims to have seen 12 to 15 basic weapons which you can modify with mods. And basically every one of those 12 to 15 basic weapons have 25 to 30 unique pieces that can be used to customize and change its stats. Now, of course, that's just what he's discovered, supposedly. As I said, none of this has been confirmed, pinch of salt, yada yada yada. But that's just what he's discovered in his 23 hours of play. In a game of this size, 23 hours is not really that long. So yeah, that's not necessarily to say that's all the weapons that are in the game, but even then, the mods just give a huge amount of variety and customizability. Forgive my neighbour who's decided to chop down some trees or mow the lawn or whatever it is they're doing out there. It's a bit obnoxious. But moving on to power armour, and basically described it almost as being like a vehicle. You wear the power armour by climbing inside it, and you climb out, and the power armour stays where you left it. It's heavy and slow, but extremely powerful. Now, he also said regarding loading screens that there are many small buildings that will not require you to load. However, bigger buildings will, but these loading screens are quite short, and they are shorter than the loading screens that you come into when you fast travel. Now finally about the narrative. Don't worry, there's no story spoilers here, but they did say that it starts off a bit slow, but it picks up and gets quite pacey, and in a full day of playing the game he has only managed to complete 4 of the main quests, and he described them as long, grueling and tough, and the story is something quite interesting. So there you have it. As I said, the link to the source will be in the description below. It is still up at the time of recording. If it's been taken down or deleted or whatever, then I take no responsibility for that. It is all in Spanish, so if you read Spanish then have at it, but for the moment I wouldn't recommend it unless you want to try your hand at some Google Translate. But it's pretty much everything I've already discussed here, but perhaps there'll be some more information in the responses on this particular forum. Regardless of all that, it sounds pretty promising actually. Obviously, whether or not you enjoy certain aspects of the gameplay and mechanics is always going to be a subjective thing. The only objective things are of course going to be like performance and things like that, but from what he said it sounds really damn good, and I'm happy to hear that they've improved the combat, because that was one of the biggest problems I had with Fallout 3, and it's nice to know that they've definitely been some hard work into improving that. It did look like they had from what we've seen, but of course looks like and actually is are 2 different things. I'd love to hear some thoughts from you guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.